Although, first of all, does anyone have any questions for ladies? Okay. Lovely, thank you.
Hello, what opportunities do you think Google Analytics 4 has for PPC marketers? Everyone's talking about the headaches that it seems to create, but what opportunities do you think have?
Should we go to our analytics experts? Sorry for it, we've got to. I think that was a little bit obvious who we were for.
Oh wow, where do I start? I think the biggest one is the attribution. I think that's the obvious one. I think many companies really underestimate the strength of the data-driven attribution. To start with, so many companies, most companies still rely on last click non-direct attribution, which is fine in some cases, but generally speaking, I think that's the biggest one. Also, the fact that you can very easily switch between the different attribution models in GA4, which is something you were not able to do in analytics. In the universal analytics, you're kind of stuck with the last click. Whereas here you have this flexibility, you can switch any time and it's going to change your numbers historically as well. I think this is the biggest one for me personally. And there are many things I hate about GA4, but I think the main is the fact that it just still keeps on changing, and one day you think you know it all, but then the next day they change something again and again. So that's frustrating, and the fact that once you switch to GA4, there's so much work that has to go into setting it up. Although in theory, a lot of the things are already tracked by default, many more things than you would usually see. You would get in universal analytics, but from the reporting point of view, you have to set up all of your reports. There's very few reports that you have. In there, you end up with your own navigation, your own list of reports, which you can customize, which is great in a way because it's fully customizable. All the reports you have, how you have them, how you call them, what goes into those reports. It's so flexible, but that means you have to put all the work, all the effort into creating those reports. And again, also just the fact that you have to continue to learn constantly. And I'm doing that on a daily basis, so I feel sorry for anyone else who's doing other things as well. But generally speaking, I feel positive about GA4. The fact that it's so flexible and the fact that they continue to change it, although it has its drawbacks as well. And the data-driven attribution, which you can switch between the different attribution models very easily, which is, I think, awesome.
I really agree with what Agnes said about attribution. I would just add that, in my opinion, there is an opportunity, not necessarily for PPC specialists, but agencies. I think that it's a big opportunity that from now on the clients will need these customized reports. And I think it's an opportunity to now really tap more into the analytics side of the business, because maybe until now it didn't make sense to have a division of analytics in an agency, but now it will make more and more sense and there will be more and more money. Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Actually, a follow-up question I have on that, and especially for the TV we've talked about on the analytics for. So I'm sure you've seen a lot of online the complaints that people have had. Has there been anyone that's gone, why are you complaining about that? That is actually a positive and not a negative. Is there anything particularly that you think is a misconception as to what GA4 is going to be?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the fact that people don't like change. No one likes to change, right? Even if it's a positive change, the fact you have to make that effort to make a change. I think you have to do a lot of explaining. Yes, it's hard, it's difficult, but once you get on the other side, you're actually going to be happy with what you have, or hopefully you will be. Yeah. I think that's the main thing. It's just people are scared of or afraid of changing. And also there's lots of companies that use it as an excuse to move to something else.
I just want to add that I heard a lot of people complaining about not seeing the bounce rate so easily, and I think this is an opportunity for all of us actually, because you have the engagement rate, and maybe I think many people were measuring it wrong or not understanding the metric and comparing it with I don't know what. So I think this is actually an opportunity. No way.
Any other questions? Ito, I have one specifically for you, if you don't mind. It was based on the forecasting stuff. Now, the quote that you had at the beginning, loved it. You know, all these models, they are mostly wrong, but they can be useful. Because none of this is like, everything is very much up.
Yeah.
You know? So how do you like explain to clients that, hey, by the way, I've got a great forecast for you, but it's not the be all and end all. We might not actually do the actual answer. What kind of caveats do you put in place?
I think main caveat is just context. Context is different. Clients may have different sale dates. Like the client that I work on just has like random sales. They don't match up year on year. So we can't forecast based on, you know, what we have last year accurately for that reason. Competition as well. If anything changes in the scape, CPCs are wrong, that throws everything off. That means that you may have to forecast way more. But I think largely it just depends on if you have a client that's very switched on. If your client is very switched on, they're very up to date with PPC, they understand it. A lot of the people we work with as an agency, if you guys work in agencies, we have an internal PPC liaison. It depends on how switched on they are to everything, whether they can understand the contextual caveats of the forecast or not. But yeah, I think we just have to say that it's a finger in the air. It's a benchmark, and you have to be very on your explanations. If you do not hit the benchmark, or if you under-deliver on the benchmark, you need to very clearly explain why. And there's loads of tools, as we've all mentioned, for that kind of thing. So.
Thank you. So switching things up, and I'm going to take us on to a very in topic right now, AI, ChatGPT, all that kind of stuff. So think of some questions that you might have on that.
You have a question to ask?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let's do that before we do that.
You mentioned using R Cloud as part of your analysis. Do you also use Python at all when using analysis, and how does that work alongside with marketing?
So I would say you can use whatever you want, whatever you feel comfortable with. Both solutions or both scripting languages can do pretty much the same things. The reason I stick to R is because I feel most comfortable with R. But as I said, if you know Python or if you're willing to learn, in fact, if I was to recommend someone to learn a scripting language such as R or Python, go for Python, because you can do some things that you can't do in R. But because I'm just more used to R, I generally stick to R. But the reason I mention RStudio is because you don't have to install anything on your device, and you can very easily just log in online, and all your work is saved on there, and it's also fairly easy to share it with your teams. You can create your teams and share your code. Yeah, it's just the fact that it's just so easy. You don't need to install anything. Whereas if you want to use R on your machine, you have to install two things, namely R console, then followed by RStudio, and then you can run R. Still easy thing to do. You can install those two things. They are both free and easy to install, but you have to install them. Whereas RStudio allows you to run R script without installing anything. But again, going back to your question, whatever you feel like, Python or R is fine.
Hi, first of all, I think it's it's super refreshing to have a panel with just ladies, so thank you for presenting tonight. It's a question for Raluca. So I love the approach that you had with changing the focus on the bottom of the funnel to having a more like top of the funnel approach, but how have you made this shift, and also who have the people that you work with client side, have they changed? Because typically at the bottom of the funnel that would be more like the like maybe PPC practitioners, but top of the funnel you may have to speak maybe more with CMO top level people. So how you made that shift, and has it shifted who you speak with client side?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's actually a very good one. Yes, in our case, we were already speaking with both the PPC and the CMO, so this is what helped. And it only happened in the case of customers that had higher budgets, because in our experience also, the SMEs aren't very open to this approach. What we hope is that once we have some case studies, and this is what we are already building with the bigger clients, the others will also start using this. And yes, how we started using it was first only for some buyer persona profiles and allocating smaller budgets. But once they actually saw in more than 6 months, actually in like 8 or 9 months, that the results were better, they started using this a lot. At first we used both the normal media plan and this multi-buyer persona touch point blueprint, and now we are only using this one. So yeah, for the moment it's working well.
I love it. The questions are rolling in now without prompting.
I found it really interesting that Agnes said, don't build on your brand terms unless you have to. Sorry, I'll mispronounce it. Raluca said, spoke about upper funnels, etc. I've been in this industry for about 11 or 12 years now. We used to do loads of remarketing, retargeting, brand bidding. It used to be like the highlight of our campaign selection of different sort of remarketing. Now we're talking a lot less about that. In fact, some of the accounts I work on, they don't want to spend a penny on existing clients. They're very firm about not doing that. They're good with their email marketing, SMS marketing, etc. So is there within what's available to us across networks, Meta, Google, in the different campaign types, and thinking about acquiring strictly new customers only, is there something that's underestimated, we're not using it enough? Let's say, oh, perhaps discovery is great, but we don't see many using it, or is there any hidden gem there for new customers only?
I think you already mentioned discovery campaigns, display campaigns. I think even Performance Max, once you exclude brand campaigns and remarketing from it, you can exclude the brand for the moment, so this would be something helpful there. And trying to use in Performance Max asset groups with audience signals is something we are looking into. But also for this to answer, I think Pinterest ads is very, very helpful, because yes, it doesn't bring you conversions, but sometimes it brings you new audiences. Instagram also, and I saw some very nice case studies focused only on Instagram and on video presentations of products and services. And yes, they don't bring conversions right away, but they bring very nice results on the long run.
Anyone else?
I'm not really an expert in advertising, but I'm more expert in measurement, but all I would say is it depends on the audience, right, you're going after, right? The channel, the tactic is going to be different. So what I would say is just experiment, do all sorts of A/B testing as much as possible. Like I even recently experimented with Facebook, that didn't work for me, now I'm going to move on to something else. And ideally test things in a way that you can really get the reading very clearly.
Sorry. Google also has the capability for you to use customer acquisition on like most campaigns. So test that, see if it works. In my experience, like we tried it for smart shopping, it didn't work as well. But now we have Performance Max and a lot of new ad formats like Discovery, it may work. So I definitely echo what Agnes says, definitely test and learn on that one. Any other questions?
Yeah. So you mentioned about building your buyer persona and basically getting a better understanding of your prospects by diving into that social media reviews, going on Similar Web Pro. is there any like specifics that you're looking for when you're doing this market research? And I assume that you're doing this research mainly for search ads, because I can't see how this could sort of like relate to like shopping or PMAX campaigns, for example.
Yes, definitely for Performance Max, only for the visual side, but of course it doesn't really help for the shopping ads. It helps a bit once you see that, for example, I don't know, maybe customers are looking at a notebook because it's blue or something like this, or maybe it has a certain attribute, and then you have to add it to the title, like the second word or something like this in the title. So I think this is the only way. The specifics we are looking for, we are looking what they are saying about these products when they are doing negative reviews, but both when they are doing positive reviews, to see the exact benefits that they are highlighting. So this is a point in the social comments and social reviews. We are also looking at the comments, the questions. If it's our client, we are also looking at the questions they ask privately when the client gives us this. Also in order to see what the main concerns are, what the language they use is, and we try to get some nice campaign messages from this, from the exact wording.
Okay, so Amanda, I'd like to finalize on, ask one last question that I think should cover all the topics, you lovely ladies have talked about. And it is about the future of AI, the future of being in running a kind of Google campaign that may just be broad, performance max, and then just we'll spit out we'll spit out the performance from you, which is what Google is saying. How does that future affect forecasting, analytics, strategy? There is on the Twitter sphere, like PPC chat, people will talk about like in the next maybe 2 to 3 years, we won't have any more match types anymore, apart from broad. We will only have performance max campaigns. We'll have a lot of not having any control on how to do our performance campaigns. How is that going to affect our jobs, do you think? And should we be scared or excited?
I would say AI is something to be excited about, but it makes me a bit wary, just because we're seeing a lot more AI come out in Google Ads, and we have no idea how it's doing what it's doing, or how we can tweak it or anything like that. Performance Max being one, it's kind of a black box. You ask Google how is it coming up with who to show certain ads to, it's just like signals. And for me, that's not really great for optimizing anything. So I would say it's definitely great. We're definitely still going to be needed, just because there's always going to be an element of humans need to guide AI to do what it needs to do. I think from the onset, even with smart bidding and stuff, it's best to have historical data, that kind of stuff. AI still needs to be guided. But I do think we're going to all have to learn new skills about how to use it. ChatGPT, for example, people are testing it to generate search copy, but you have to know how to program ChatGPT for it to spit out what you want it to do. So that means we're going to have to learn a new skill set. But I think it's definitely very exciting. Very good prospects for the future of PPC with that. But I think it's just kind of
learning curve.
Yeah, learning curve as usual. Yeah. So,
Agnes?
Well, there's a lot I could say. I have very mixed emotions about the whole AI thing. As a marketing analyst, I'm probably concerned or annoyed. So, for example, like you just mentioned about Performance Max, you don't really get much insight, you don't really get much data from it. So how the heck are you going to analyze that? So it is challenging, but because of that and other things happening right now in the space, within the marketing analytics space, we're increasingly moving away from tracked data, therefore we're moving towards more marketing mix modeling, statistical-based techniques that allow us to measure the value of the various campaigns. The value or the quality of the data that we have access to is becoming less and less reliable, just less data. And it's only going to go in that direction. It's going to be increasingly hard to use track data, even including Google Analytics data, to understand what's actually going on. You have to look for alternative methods. And the two kind of main areas that are really growing right now are as I mentioned, MMM, so marketing mix modeling, as well as incrementality testing. So if you do run campaigns, you have to design them in a way that you can actually see the results fairly clearly. So it's all about designing things in a way that you can actually get the read. But it is challenging. It's becoming really, really challenging. And I'll just add, because I had the recent experience as well with my 11-year-old son, who is starting to use WhatsApp. And I think with AI, it's a bit similar. The technology is going so fast, we're just not really ready, in my opinion, as a community, as a society, to live with those things around us. And children get bullied, or children go on social media and they see things and they think it's true, but it's not. It's just an AI-based picture or something. That kind of side of things is really scaring me. So yeah, but in terms of also analytics and measurement, I think that's actually going to mean more work for me. So in that sense, I'm not worried.
I agree with this, honestly, yeah. And I think it will be a bit like coming back to the basics of advertising. I think that creative campaigns, influencer campaigns will matter more and more in the future. And I don't know how this will shape PPC, but yes, this is how I see things. Because if everything is going to be so AI-based and we won't be able to have much more control, I think that it will really matter for a brand. If they really manage to be outstanding, if they manage to stand out, if they manage to build a community, for example, if they manage to get customer loyalty or to get people to talk about their product or brand. So I think a lot of the budget will move there, I think. And I think there will be still PPC needed for this.
Amazing. Please, give everyone a round of applause. Thank you very much, ladies. And yeah, your job for tonight. Thank you so much. Really much appreciated.